what's your favorite brew from Exhibit A Brewing Company?
That is a tough one. I always answer that with a similar answer, and that is it's very momentary. It depends. My favorite beer is the one that I'm having at the moment that is making that experience what it is, right? So generally speaking, for me, I like a lighter, crisper beer, whereas, the hoppier beers I love to brew, I love to sell them, and I love to drink them on occasion, but I can't sit back and drink 2 or 3 6.5% IPAs on a Wednesday and feel all that great on Thursday. I am a very young, 40, almost 7-year-old dude, but not that young. So if I'm sitting in my parents' house in Jaffrey, which they don't have anymore, but I'll say it anyway. If I'm sitting at that house and there's a fire pit going and it's like fall and it's crispy outside, I want like a porter or a stout. But if it's like summer and it's 80 degrees and we just got on the boat, we're chilling in the sun, I want that Kolscher lager or something like that. So
how do you like constantly come up with the new flavors and the names? I mean, you have a beer called the Cat's Meow. I mean, like, how does all of that go into the name with the flavor of a beer? Is there a science behind it, or?
There is a massive amount of conversation behind it. I mean, Kelsey Roth is our general manager. He's also our creative outlet. He is the one that's done all of our labels, our social media. He's the one that connected us. Yep. Kelsey is a massive piece of what we do every single day. He has a huge impact on our business. He has a huge impact on how you see us. He's our language. He's our storyteller on some level. But really what he does is he translates my craziness really well. So when I first came to him and I hired Kelsey to be this person, he was like, okay, tell me your story. Like, let me understand where the heck you're coming from so that I can kind of help discover what these beers are going to be called and what they'll be. And like at the time, it was already a list of beers that I knew I wanted to make. The Cat's Meow was one. Goody Two Shoes Kolsch was another. Sunday Paper was the stout. And these names kind of just were names that I like, names that I thought would work. There were reasons and stories behind them based on Exhibit A. Goody Two Shoes was about innocence. The Cat's Meow was more kind of a joke about saying we make the best IPA on the planet or whatever. And then Sunday Paper was like, what are you doing right before you're drinking your stout on a weekend? You're chilling in the morning, reading your paper, you have your breakfast, there's coffee in that beer. It just kind of made sense. So flash forward to like now where we have all these other names, all these other sort of brand identities that we've created. Kelsey and I have done most of that together. He's named some, I've named others. We have a beer series called Demo Tape. Demo Tape came out of all of our love for music. And as a brewery, I think of ourselves a little bit like a band. The thing about the Demo Tape for us was like, we're like a band that's kind of writing all of our tunes. We're writing our songs, and they're not all necessarily perfect that when we first sing them to you. So for me, it made sense. It's like, let's have a naming system that allows us to kind of adapt and create and not necessarily be locked into like, here's the recipe, here's the brand, that's the beer. We wanted it to be a little more flexible. We wanted to be a little more free. And so Demo Tape made sense for us. It just did. Like we had Demo Tape 1, which was the first batch of beer we made. And then we had Demo Tape 2, 3, 4, whatever. 4 became the Cat's Meow. 5 became Briefcase Porter. 7 became Hair Razor. 6 became Leitmotif. So we like ended up creating these permanent beers out of these demo tapes, which has now changed. Now Demo Tape is actually more of like, let's make a bunch of beers that we think are fun and cool and interesting, and hopefully will sell well and be received well by the consumer. And we can come up with new branding and new labels all the time. And that way it's exciting and fresh, and people can kind of approach it from like, what's the new demo tape that's coming out from Exhibit A? And right now we have 4 double IPAs that we've released over the last several months. We have a milkshake with blackberries and Eldorado hops. We have a Nelson influenced double IPA, Nelson hop influenced double IPA with Gewürztraminer wine grapes. We have another one that's like a West Coast IPA. So we kind of want to kick it back to like my old days of brewing West Coast IPAs in the 90s. And then also we have one that's a cryo hopped beer. With cryo hops are like you think, cryogenically frozen. So these cryo hops are, a lot of the vegetal matter is removed from the hop. So it's a much kind of cleaner aroma in the beer. So we do a blend, mostly cryo with a little bit of pellets. That cryo beer is stunning. It's one of my favorites of that series. So it gives us some freedom, and that's the beauty of that. Leitmotif used to be like that. We used to just brew a new leitmotif with the harvest. So every time a new fruit would come available, when blueberries are harvested, we make the blueberry. When strawberries in the early season, when they're done at the end of June, we're making that beer. Right now we're focused on this All the Berries. It's a tribute to my dad, and he had two very good friends when I was growing up named Barry. So it was like I was surrounded by berries all the time. And so it just, I don't know, personally it made sense. It was kind of a funny name, and my dad appreciated it, I guess. And so he doesn't even really drink beer much, but he's got those cans in his fridge so he can share them, you know.
Yeah, that's pretty
of
cool.
course, no one's coming over right now to share them, but
soon enough.
Yeah. So All the Berries is something that we're going to continue to make throughout the season now, and we have a cranberry one that we'll do in the early fall and late fall for for Thanksgiving season. Basically between Halloween and Thanksgiving,
yeah,
the cranberry will be available. So
nice, man. Yeah, that's cool. It's cool to hear how you come up with the names. I didn't know if it's just you guys are sitting around drinking one night, coming up with random names, or if they all have a purpose. You know, it's pretty cool to hear that story.
Some are like that. I mean, we've definitely come up with names that were like, this one sounds fun, and then you hear it in the morning and you're like, no, that's not right. But we use WhatsApp to communicate throughout the company, and we have a bunch of groups, and one of them is beer ideas. So it's not just about the name; it's also like, hey, I ran into a farmer that's growing, Japanese knotweed, and a friend of mine actually is a great home brewer. This woman, Kristen Sykes, she's part of the Babes Boston area beer enthusiast society, I think is what it stands for.
Oh, okay.
So she makes really interesting beer with Japanese knotweed, and I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Like, let's maybe try that if we get some access to that. We haven't made one yet, but again, like that's an idea that's on the table. It's been brought up. It's on the list. Like if we feel like making that beer one day, we will. We do these Pink Boots release beers through the Pink Boots Society to help raise money for ladies in brewing and further education. And two of our ladies here, Colleen and Katie, were interested in doing that this year, and so they put together a beer, kind of very cool. We're actually transferring some of that today and going to be releasing the bottles of it in about a month or so. In the past years, we've used like lemon verbena or lemon balm, or a combination of the two, that Andrea at Valley Mall had grown in her personal garden. And because I had access to it, I was like, oh, I've never used lemon verbena in a beer. Let's make a lemon influenced beer. And so things like that happen just like through conversation, through these WhatsApp messages, like, hey, I had a beer with, rose hips and honey water. Like, I want to try that. And so, we're going to try it because we can. We're flexible. We're small enough. We can do that.